Reuters just released an article. U.S. Supreme Court raises doubts about suit against Twitter over Istanbul massacre. If you're unfamiliar with what's happening with Section 230, if the Supreme Court overturned 230 the way that we're talking about in these cases here, it would basically mean people would have to crack down on moderating their websites to an absolutely absurd degree. It would open it up so that these companies could be sued if anything defamatory or violent was posted there at all, ever, and made public. So YouTube would have to narrow down who would be allowed to post on there to like a total of like 100 channels, basically, and that's it. Only people that are very, very trusted. That's pretty much what's at risk with Section 230 being removed. It would completely erase the internet as we know it today. It would be a really big deal. A lot of companies would shut down and others would cut off their user interaction. Social media would not exist in its current form. The U.S. Supreme Court justices expressed skepticism on Wednesday toward a lawsuit against Twitter by the family of a Jordanian man killed in an Istanbul nightclub massacre as they weighed for a second straight day whether to hold internet companies accountable for contentious content posted by users. American relatives of Nawras Alsaf accused Twitter of aiding and abetting the Islamic State group, which claimed responsibility for the January 1st, 2017 attack that killed him and 38 others during a New Year's celebration by failing to police a social media platform for its accounts or posts. The 9 justices heard arguments in Twitter's appeal after a lower court allowed the lawsuit to proceed and found the company had refused to take meaningful steps to prevent Islamic State's use of the platform. The justices on Tuesday heard arguments in an appeal arising from a separate lawsuit against Google LLC-owned YouTube, part of Alphabet Inc., by the family of an American woman killed in Paris attack by Islamist militants. Both lawsuits were brought under a U.S. law that enables Americans to recover damages related to an act of international terrorism. So this is Section 230. This is, apparently, Reuters wrote an article about the likelihood that the Supreme Court is going to erase Section 230, which would have broad-reaching effect. It would destroy the internet as we know it. There's a bunch of stuff out there about it. Legal did a video about it. I did a video about it if you want to learn more about this on all of my channels. Just search for Section 230. Philip DeFranco talked about this. It's pretty well understood. The Supreme Court's hearing a case right now that could destroy the internet as we know it. Just look around if you want to hear more about it. Conservative Justice Neil Gorsuch said Anti-Terrorism Act focuses liability on aiding a person who engaged in a terrorist act. We all appreciate how horrible the attack was, but there's very little linking the defendants in this complaint to those persons, Gorsuch said of Twitter. Yeah, agreed. I absolutely agree with him on this. Justice Department lawyer Edwin Needler, arguing in favor of Twitter's position on behalf of President Joe Biden's administration, so this is the good guy, I think, who's fighting on our side of this battle, said a company might be liable under the statute if it engaged in personal interaction with the perpetrator of an unlawful act. But Needler said Twitter's services were too remote from the act of terrorism in the case. Agreed. Okay, that's good news. So it sounds like Section 230 will probably remain the way it is now. Conservative Justice Brett Kavanaugh raises doubts over the scope of the statute, reminding Eric Schnapper, a lawyer for Alsof's relatives, about CNN's 1997 interview with the then leader of al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden. Could, under your theory, CNN have been sued for aiding and abetting the September 11th attacks? Kavanaugh asked, referring to the 2001 attacks on the U.S. in which al-Qaeda militants crashed hijacked airplanes. The justices asked Seth Waxman, the lawyer representing Twitter, questions about the scope of the Anti-Terrorism Act, testing the company's argument that it should not be held liable for providing a service used by millions of people, while also enforcing a policy against terrorism-related content. That's fantastic news. It sounds like the really conservative justices are opposed to removing Section 230. I was really worried about this, actually. Here's a quote from Kagan. Kagan is what would like a liberal or a left-leaning justice. You're helping by providing your service to those people with the explicit knowledge that those people are using it to advance terrorism. Conservative Justice Amy Coney Barrett added, if you know ISIS is using it, you know ISIS is going to be doing bad things. You know ISIS is going to be committing acts of terrorism. Sure, but everybody uses it. Literally everybody uses YouTube. And there's no way to prevent ISIS from uploading their recruitment video. I mean, I guess you can crack down and try to remove it all, but there are millions of hours of YouTube videos uploaded every minute, aren't there? Or something like that. I don't even remember the statistics now, but it's a lot. Barrett, however, challenged Schnapper over whether the claims in the lawsuit were specific enough, asking, "Does your complaint contain any specific allegations about ways in which Twitter was used to perpetrate this attack?" Liberal Justice Sonia Sotomayor suggested that in a neutral business setting, using something that is otherwise not criminal, a platform to communicate with people without trying to help a person commit a crime, might not satisfy the law's requirements to allow for a lawsuit. Okay, I'm with Sotomayor here. So Kagan is the only one that's spoken on this that I disagree with so far. That's great news. Although I'm really disappointed in Kagan for providing such an argument. Substantial assistance. A key issue is whether the family's claims sufficiently allege that the company knowingly provided substantial assistance to an act of international terrorism that would allow the relatives to maintain their suit and seek damages under the anti-terrorism law. Biden's administration has argued that the Anti-Terrorism Act imposes liability for assisting a terrorist act and not for providing generalized aid to a foreign terrorist organization with no causal link to the act at issue. Islamic State called the attack revenge for Turkish military involvement in Syria. The main suspect, Abdul Qadir Mashpirov or something, I'm sorry, I pronounced the name wrong, I apologize, an Uzbek national, was later captured by police. The justices in the case argued on Tuesday appeared torn over whether to narrow a form of legal immunity provided under Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act that shields the internet companies from a wide array of lawsuits. The lower court dismissed that case largely based on Section 230 immunity. That case involves a bid by the family of an American woman named Nohemi Gonzalez, who was fatally shot in 2015 in a 2015 rampage in Paris, an attack for which Islamic State also claimed responsibility to hold Google liable for recommending to certain YouTube users content from the group. In the Twitter case, the San Francisco-based 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals did not consider whether Section 230 barred the family's lawsuit. Google and Meta, or Facebook, are also defendants, but did not formally join Twitter's appeal. Rulings in both cases are due by the end of June. Yeah, that's an interesting article. I feel like that's some good news. It sounds like they're not going to go for removing Section 230. I'm glad to hear that. Either way, sign up for my email list, okay? Just in case something happens, I'll be able to communicate with you still. telltaleatheist.com/subscribe. telltaleatheist.com/subscribe. It's in the description too.